The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Today we're going to be talking about jury evaluation through Artemis Suite SQala software. This is a standalone module that's used inside our Artemis Suite software. My name is Brian Cremines. I'm one of the NVH account managers here at Head Acoustics in our North American office located in Brighton, Michigan. Today, my colleague Shane Thied will be joining us, fielding any questions and supporting any technical issues. They can also become the moderator of our webinar in case of any technical difficulties during the presentation. To ensure you can hear us okay, I would just ask that you fire off a question or raise a hand in the GoToMeeting Tools panel. This webinar will be recorded and be made available at a later date. But that's not been finalized yet. So as we proceed, if you have any questions, feel free to send them to us in a chat. We'll try to get to them towards the end of the presentation. If I miss something, I apologize up front. It may be that we need to answer that question offline to give you a better answer and going forward. So in case that if you're not already muted, please mute your microphones, sit back and enjoy the presentation. In today's webinar, we're going to cover a brief overview of our SQala project, where it best fits into your development cycle, which configuration best meets your needs and for your project needs. We'll also give you a brief overview of the layout and the features, and we're also going to play a video of me generating a SQala presentation from scratch, just a small 5-step jury, and I'll moderate that as we go through it. Lastly, we're going to give you some time for some tips and tricks that we've learned over the years of doing jury evaluations. And if we have any time at the very end, we'll answer any questions that we have outstanding, or if there are any other points or topics that we need to cover during this presentation. So what is SQala? SQala is a jury evaluation or listening test that captures the customer's interpretation. These studies can be extremely beneficial and are currently widely used throughout the NVH world for benchmarking, target setting, and capturing the end user experience. With the release of SQala, we now offer a modern, easily customizable user interface that provides different types of scenarios, and while utilizing the latest computer technology, including a full touchscreen support for user interface. So if you think of your own engineering processes or processes, you could boil it down into 4 deadlines or phases that you deal with. You have the kickoff phase, the early validation, release validation, and product and quality phases. If you were to lay these out on a clock face, you would have a process flow that looks something like this. During each of these phases, you have a very typical task for NVH that might look something like these. While conducting these various tasks, we hope that you're utilizing Head Acoustics hardware and software along the way, but as you do, it would entail some of these unique activities and products. For example, during the kickoff phase, most of you might do a jury evaluation, but it's not listed here if you're doing some benchmarking work. But you might also be doing some sound generation or validation or signal clarification throughout some of your simulation work. While conducting your early validation, you'll most likely see some of these, which is the standardized testing, streamlining your process through automation, running your data through a pool project, doing your jury evaluation to get your first runoff of evaluations, and then finally your metric development. During the later or cutting hard tools, you're going to continue to use your standardized testing. You're going to continue to automate your projects and evaluate your data, and then do a final jury evaluation before releasing the product for production. And then once you get into production, your initial step and ongoing for your end-of-line tester checks and quality audits should be conducting these tests. And from time to time, it wouldn't hurt to verify that your production is still meeting your metrics that you've developed over the time. Then once you've completed all these, you can obviously apply your lessons learned and apply it to the next project going forward. So now that we've gone through how this fits into your process, if you will, or the different processes that you use on a day-to-day basis, there's a number of different configurations that we can offer now. So the first one let's look at our single workplace configuration. So in a single workplace configuration, users you create a jury test with the SQala project, and you do it on a workplace computer. And it's a single subject can perform the listening test at the computer. For accurate signals and equalized playback, it's a suitable playback device is required, and we always recommend the products listed here. ASM50 is the Artemis module that you need to build your project, and also the SQala client, which is free of charge, that could be deployed as well to be used. If you're doing multiple subjects but using a single workplace configuration, you can do that. You just need to, the tests need to be performed sequentially. The next one we're going to look at a listening studio or group playback. For performing these, the sound playback is controlled centrally for all the participants. So all subjects hear and rate the same sound at the same time. Individual playback is not available in this configuration. But for this configuration, you'll use a Labo2 at the operator PC, and you'll have a set of headphones, and then you'll have multiple headphones and a headphone amplifier to support the different stations that each of the listeners will be sitting at. The listening tests are created with the ASM50. 51 and 58 are required for controlling and providing the listening test out to each of the stations, and each listening station will be equipped with a computer or a Windows tablet to enter the ratings and a set of headphones. Now if we change over from, still in a listening studio, but now let's look at individual playback configurations. To do this, each participant will control their own playback individually. Central control of the playback is not possible. And in the individual modes, it's particularly preferable if the sounds are very short. For example, if you're doing door closing events, or if you have a very low volume where the subject needs to concentrate on the sound more intently than they would on some other objects. If a sound is played only once in a group mode and the subject's distracted or lacking in concentration, they cannot perform the rating accurately. So for this configuration, we suggest a B2U and a BHS2 headset be used. And this also gives you better mobility. If you're moving around from place to place or location to location, group to group, you can do it on the fly. So you take the tablets, you plug in the small device with the headsets, and you're off to the races. The components needed to execute this configuration is a headphone at the PC for the operator that can supervise and check the sounds during the test. The listening test is created with the ASM50, as previously stated. ASM 51 and 58 are required for controlling and providing the listening tests. And each listening station will be equipped with their own computer Windows tablet for entering the ratings, listening to the sounds, and doing the playback at their own pace. Now, for performing a distributed jury evaluation, where you send it out to multiple subjects located on the same network but in various locations, this jury test is provided from a server. so the subjects can download a listening test and listen from the server directly and do it at their own workplace. And then as they collect it, they can send it back up through the network back to the server. So in this configuration, the components that you'll need is the playback unit at the supervisor's PC, used for playback and design of the jury test. ASM 50 is required. Access to the server or managing the jury test will take place via ASM 51. The jury tests are provided to the subject via the server, and ASM 58 is installed on the server. Now, be aware that there's no graphical interface on the server. It's just an option that provides the avenue to distribute out these tests. Subjects are then use their own respective playback devices for listening, and all the information that they're using as far as what playback device they're using, what operating system they're taking it on, will all be reported back to the server and can be reviewed by the test supervisor at a later date. And then lastly, our last option we have is we have SQala API module in our ASX family. And this allows our users to extend the SQala from their custom jury to a custom jury test. So if you want to have more ability to develop your own jury test, this does require some know-how and some third-party software that you'll have to purchase on your own, and you need to know how to program, preferably C+ or WPF. And this can only be done in today's software in a local mode only. So it can only be a single juror at this time. So now let's get into a little bit more of the features. We've talked about when we recommend that you conduct a jury. We talked about how it fits into your process. Now let's build the project. So from the Artemis Suite startup screen, if you click on the listening section of the navigation list, you'll find that all things SQala are located all in one location. And so from the start screen, you click on listening, and you'll find them all right here. And then from this page, you'll click, you can build your project and modify existing projects. You can run a single person or local session. You can export any results already existing into your Excel format. And then lastly, you can review and manage whatever projects you have completed or ready to go, and their associated sessions that have been completed with them. And you can also review the results for each of those sessions. When you begin building your project, you'll have all the same features of Artemis Suite. It has the same look, the same feel. What you'll have here is you'll have the head navigator to easily navigate and select what files you want to work with and which ones you want to add to your project. You'll have your head player to review your file sounds. This is also where you'll select your playback device to see if the sounds play back in an accurate form or fashion. So if you want to pick your wave device, or if you want to use your B2U, or if you want to use your Lab O2 or P2, you can do that here. You'll also have your properties and events pane. And this is where you'll configure all the aspects of your project. You'll define how it looks, how it feels, and how it flows. And then in the middle section here, what you'll have is you have your preview pane, and you also have the projects in it to fine-tune your project. So on the left side, there's really two sections that you really have to worry about on this part. On the left side, you have the details pane where you will organize your sounds, define your attributes, set up your steps, and how you wish the jury evaluation to progress. On the right side, you'll have your preview pane. This is where you'll coordinate or make sure that it looks the way and it has the feel that you want it to have. So this will give you exactly what the participant will be looking at. So this is just the preview pane to get that feel. So the construction of the project's been made incredibly easy and efficient. There's the first that you'll have to do is you just grab the files that you want to use. Then you can define the attributes by utilizing our standard attributes. If none of these meet your standards, or your needs. You can, or if you just want different verbiage to create your own from scratch, you can do that as well. And then lastly, you select and organize each step you want to participate. You want the participant to take during the evaluation, what questions you want to ask, and what judgments you want them to use. So to see this in action now, let's begin building our jury evaluation. We're going to do a 5-step jury that has a demo, a category, a ranking, and an interview step on 4 door closing sounds. And then we'll conduct a preview to see it in action. So here we've grabbed it and we've started our jury evaluation, and you can see the 3 panes of sounds, attributes, and steps. Under the sounds, we're going to grab our sounds that we want to use for our jury evaluation. And I've included an intro demo step. And now we're going to look at the attributes. And in the attributes phase, we're going to grab which one of these that we want. You can grab multiple ones if you wish. I've grabbed the loudness 7 category and quality of speech, which is a 5 category. But we're really not doing speech with this, so I'm going to change this to sound. And you can dynamically change it, as can be seen here in the properties. And now I'm going to go ahead and create my own attribute, and I'm just going to call it general impression. And I'm going to make it a 5-step. And I'm going to list it from ascending order, 1 to whatever. And you can have as many steps in this as you wish and as you want. It's just a matter of what you're looking for. So for this one, we're just going to stick with 5. And the 5th one, obviously, we're going to make it, where do I sign? This is so good, I just want to sign right now, much like this presentation. So next, we're going to define what steps we're going to take, or what each slide is going to look like in our presentation. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to do an information step, and we're going to overwrite it just to say welcome. And you can see as I'm typing, which I don't type well, but as you see me typing, you'll see it displayed in the preview right in the middle. And as you need to make changes or make mistakes, you can see it and you'll see what the change is. So now I'm going to add a picture. I'm going to add some text to it just to kind of give a little more feel to it. And I'm going to give it a title name here. And the picture's pretty small now, and I don't really want it that small, but I want to make sure that people really get a good feel for it. So I'm going to give a title in the picture, and I'm going to organize it as such. So next, let's get a demo sound going so people can get into the mood or in the feel of what we're going to be listening to in the jury evaluation. So let's give them an introduction, or we call it a sound demo. So here I'm just going to give it a title, introduction, and I'm going to put it into imagine in a world of whatever your product might be. In this event, it'd be a door closing event. I'm going to grab my intro. I'm going to add it to the slide just simply by checking the box. And now we have it listed right here in the middle. It's a big play button. There's one sound. And you'll notice now at the top, on the top of the screen, we now have 2 steps. We have a progression bar down here, and we have our play here in the middle. So now let's add a new category, judgment. And this one we're just going to call it an evaluation method. Give them some instructions. Now you'll notice here that the instructions don't appear until we add some sounds to it. So now we have to define what attribute we want to use for this evaluation. We're going to do quality of sound. We're going to put them in a vertical mode. We're going to select all 4 sounds. And what you'll see here now is at the bottom of the screen, we have slide 1 of 4. And now we're going to move on to our ranking, where I'm going to grab all 4 sounds again. I'm going to put them all in one slide. But I don't really want to give the name away, so let's just take the names off because we don't need those. And let's give it a header, and call it, place these in the correct order of sound that you like. And since I put that in the title, I don't need more instructions. I'm going to turn off the sound names. You'll see here that all the names have disappeared. And let's add in an interview step. This will be our last step. So just a brief thank you. A little bit of instruction here with my poor typing. And then below this, we're going to define our elements that we want to add. Now you have the option to add an integer, a date, put in your own words, text field. Here's the text input. So for this one, we're just going to say, in your own words, answer this question. And now let's add in another field, and we're going to give it an integer value. And we can make this, this one is set from 0 to 10. Please rank whatever the question is. For this, you may want to say, tell us what you thought of the evaluation, 1 to 10. And now we can put in a date field. How often have you heard this? When was the last time you heard a noise that concerned you? Or how long have you been dealing with this product? Totally up to you how you want to do it. And you can make it mandatory or optional. Or you can have a multiple choice. And here you just simply put in what your question is, and then below it you're going to define a multi-selection, or you can only do a single selection, and you can add as many options as you want. Now, for instance, for some reason, as you're typing this, like our older software, some of this wasn't as definable, or you couldn't make the changes once you've made the test. It's set in stone. And here you can see where I've already made a mistake. I have options 1, 3, 4, and I forgot about 2 with a spelling error. But let's just drag it up, move it up, and now you'll notice here, when we move it, it'll put it in the right spot, and now we have them all in the order that we want them to be in. So now that we've completed all 5 steps of our evaluation, let's do a preview right from the beginning, and let's just run it. And again, that's just saying this doesn't count, but this is what it looks like. So this is what the end user or the participant of the jury evaluation will see. You'll see a green ring play as it sounds very short, so we'll advance through the slides. Now we're on step 3, where we're going to do our evaluation, and we're going to go our ranking. So now we're stepping through each of the 4 slides, or the 4 sounds, giving it an evaluation. And this could be loudness, it could be sharpness, it could be tonality, it could be a multiple of different evaluations. Just for this example, we did 1. Now here I'm doing a ranking, and I'm playing the different sounds, and I'm going to go back and check between the 2, and I kind of like this one better than I like the 3rd one better than the 2nd one. I played the 4th one, and the 4th one to me is the best. So now I'm playing them again to make sure I'm in the right. I like them, and I'm completed. So in my own words, I'm just going to type some gibberish, and I'm going to rank what my feeling was. And the last time I did this, you'll have a pop-up window, which you can't see here, but it'll pop up in a separate window, and give it a date. And then I'm going to click on my options. And I'm going to submit it, and it's going to say thank you for completing it, and the data will be saved up to the server. So that's how the jury evaluation software works. This is a brief demo. Now, while conducting the test in the listening studio configuration, you as the presenter will be able to watch the progression for each participant as they make their selections right on your the supervisor screen. And this can even give you some insight on who's flying through the test, being the least critical, or who's really taking a lot of time, or who's lagging behind, if you will, being the most critical. And this might even be able to provide you, if you're paying close enough attention, some demographic value, which might be valuable. For example, if you're doing an internal study, what role the person holds in your company may have some effect on their decisions, or how long they've been familiar with the product. Or if this is an external study where you're using the general public or some suppliers or customers or whatever people outside your organization you might want to use, it might provide some insight into their past experience or influences, or some generalized initial response or feedback based on how quickly they respond or slowly they respond. And it's always nice to see what's going on as your jury evolves. So when you're conducting a remote session, for the participation, you can send out email invites. Here's an example of a predefined email that can automatically be generated from Artemis Suite. Once your jury has been built, you set up a session, it's generated on your server, and it's always good to schedule a specific time where you can just copy and paste this information into a meeting notice. When it's time, the participant will just click on the link, follow in the email or in the invite, and then the SQala screen will pop up. That's shown here. Or they can fill out the information. They can grab what session that they want to do. If you're doing multiple studies, different tests all at the same time, and they can grab whatever session they want to grab. If you're just running one at a time, they just simply hit start. If you want them to put in their username, they can. Or if you just want to simply keep them anonymous, you can do that as well. And SQala will automatically put a default username right into it, right here. Typically, we like to recommend that you use just a generated name or anonymous. That way, each participant, they can add, like I said, they can add their name, but not necessary. Once a juror has completed their jury, you can review the results in Excel. The workbook tablet tabs will be labeled in the same sequence that you did your jury evaluation. So every step has its own tab. This provides for a very clean and well-organized document that follows the same logical order as your jury evaluation. On the tabs that contain analytical data, you'll be provided with information from each attribute that has an average result. Right next to the summarized analysis for each attribute. Then below that, you'll find the individual results for each participant, which has the statistical analysis for each participant next to it. And then at the very bottom of the page, what you'll find is the statistical analysis for each sound. So now let's talk a little bit about the tips and tricks that we've learned as we've conducted some of these jury evaluations. So first, you always want to provide a demo file during the introduction. This should be an accurate representation of the sounds that you'll be evaluating, but not included in the jury. You want to set the mood for them. Just make sure that the sound isn't too good or not too bad, as you need to have it in the nominal range. You don't want to define or predefine what their expectations are. So next, you'll have all the files. All the files should be around the same length of time. If you're evaluating different sounds or different characteristics that have a larger span of time between them, group those sounds together. Don't mix and match the short sounds with the long sounds. This will sway the juror responses. Try to limit your jurors' listening time to around 30 minutes. The longer the participant the longer they spend on this, the more chance you have that they tend to lose their attention span. This condition, we call this juror fatigue. Next, you want to use some common language, not like an engineer, but more like an average consumer shopping for your next purchase. Us in NVH tend to use our black magic terminology, and I'm using air quotes here for you, on a daily basis. A lot of people don't understand what we're talking about, and we can get into these deep discussions with these fancy words, and no one really understands what we're talking about. And then lastly, just make the setting pleasant for the juror. And not first thing in the morning, not during their lunchtime, not right before they're ready to leave. Set times during the day that they want to be there. And avoid those crazy times. And the closer you are to lunch, you're going to skew they're going to skew it because they want to eat, they want to get done, they want to go, or they want to go home. So make sure you have good times for that. So all the material presented here was collected, analyzed, and developed with head acoustic properties. It's been listed here. I hope you found this information useful, the webinar interesting. If you like more detailed information, or you'd like a detailed demonstration of the software in action, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Contact your account manager. We can set up a time to do that. Please note that upon leaving the webinar, you're going to have a brief survey to provide valuable feedback to us for the next venue. And also, don't forget our upcoming webinar for the sound quality metric, which is on April 16th. And now if there are any questions, we'll try to answer them in the time that we have. We have about a minute or so left of our time. We can share a few extra minutes if we need to. Sorry, I was talking with my mic muted, so apologize. So with Excel, what you can do is, this was a great question. They asked how does the results populated. So this is all excerpts from Excel. Hopefully you can see my screen. And what you'll see here is that it's all organized in the same fashion. So in Artemis Suite, you can see here, the workbook itself is organized in the same way. So each worksheet follows each slide. So on the slides that you have actual objective measurements or data, if you will, subjective data coming through. For example, we have the 4 sounds, and we did an intensity and the loudness scale. You'll see what each of the ratings were. Now, for the summarized analysis for each of these attributes, you can see the average, standard deviation, your min, your low quartile, your medium, your upper quartile, and your maximum ratings. Now, if we look for each individual attribute, you can see each juror or test person and how they rated each sound. And again, you see the same statistical analysis. And then lastly, for each of the sounds, what you'll get is you'll get the total number of participants, your average, your standard deviation, and your confidence score of 0.95. And then your uppers and lowers and medium quartiles. Now, this is as far as we go as far as the statistical analysis for your jury evaluation. From there, if you need to go further, say in a third-party software like Minitab, you can export this data right into that and do your further graphical analysis. Hopefully that answers your question. All right. So if there's no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and end this session. I want to thank you all for attending. I hope you enjoyed this. And again, if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you again. Have a great day.